So I want you to imagine a guy. We'll just call him Michael.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah. So Michael hasn't been truly physically hungry in like a decade.
Wow.
A decade.
Seriously. His meals arrive on this perfectly timed, algorithmically optimized schedule. He lives in a house that never, ever deviates from exactly 72 degrees.
Naturally.
Right. He travels in a climate-controlled car, and at his desk, he's got artificial intelligence, anticipating his schedule, summarizing all his complex documents, and even generating the initial ideas he used to have to brainstorm himself.
Right. So he's totally insulated.
Exactly. His phone remembers every number. His GPS handles literally every turn of his commute.
I mean, on paper, he represents the absolute pinnacle of human engineering. Like, by almost every historical measure, Michael has achieved total environmental mastery.
But here's the crazy part. If his lunch schedule is delayed by just like a mere hour, his body goes into this absolute physiological crisis of anxiety and irritability.
Oh, yeah. The classic meltdown.
Yeah.
Right. And a long walk genuinely exhausts him. Even a sudden, slight change in his work routine produces a totally disproportionate mental breakdown.
Because he's engineered virtually all the friction out of his day.
Yeah, but actually living that frictionless life somehow feels monumental to him. And that brings us to the mission of our deep dive today. If humanity has essentially solved the survival puzzle, unlimited food, constant warmth, zero friction, why does the prize feel like a penalty? Okay, let's unpack this. Because the text we're looking at today, The Cost of Comfort, it really dives into this massive evolutionary paradox.
It really is arguably the defining paradox of the modern era. And to really understand it, we have to recognize that human biology, it has absolutely zero built-in programming for a state of permanent abundance.
Wait, zero?
Zero. I mean, we are operating this ancient, highly reactive machinery in an entirely novel environment.
So it's like we're using outdated hardware for a brand new operating system.
That's actually a great way to put it. Let's look at the cellular level of that machinery. There is this foundational principle in biology and fitness, and it's basically use it or lose it.
Right, which we usually apply exclusively to muscle mass, right? Like you put your arm in a cast, the muscle shrinks, you lift heavy things, it grows.
Exactly. But this biological logic, it governs nearly every single system in the human organism. It's not just a sign of your body failing you as you age, It is a sign of uncompromising, ruthless efficiency.
Okay, so the human body is essentially like a ruthless corporate accountant.
Aha!
Yes.
That's it.
Like if a department, say the carrying heavy things up a steep hill department, if that isn't producing any daily value because you're just taking the elevator every day, the accountant just looks at the ledger and slashes its budget to save energy.
The accountant actually goes a step further and sells off the office furniture. Because the human body does not maintain expensive biological machinery out of sentimentality. Muscle tissue, cardiovascular capacity, bone density, neurological pathways, these all require a massive continuous expenditure of caloric energy to just sustain.
Right, so if you're not using them, why pay for them?
Exactly. If your environment stops demanding that capacity, the body doesn't keep it around just in case. It dismantles the machinery to repurpose the energy. If we look at the broader scope of human history, comfort was always a temporary, hard-won reward.
Like you hunted, you gathered, you survived a brutal winter, and then, only then, you rested.
Yes, the exertion was mandatory. Today, we are the only organisms in the entire history of planet Earth to experience comfort not as a temporary respite, but as a permanent industrialized baseline right from birth.
And the accountant has no ledger category for that.
No, none at all. The biological signaling pathway, it cannot distinguish between I am resting because I earned it after intense labor and I am resting because all demands have been permanently removed by technology.
It just sees the rest.
Right. It simply reads the persistent signal of low demand, and it begins the systematic subtraction of your physical capacity.
Man. Okay, so that's subtraction. That completely explains the physical fatigue Michael feels. But it doesn't really explain the mental and emotional crises, right? It doesn't explain why a delayed lunch causes a grown adult to lash out at their colleagues.
Well, for that, we have to look at how this biological accountant audits our internal engines, like our metabolism.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because you're saying being irritable about a late lunch is a biological failing, not a character one.
Well, yeah, the lack of scarcity profoundly alters how our cells operate. Historically, human metabolism functioned as this highly flexible dual fuel engine.
Dual fuel.
Yeah, so it burned glucose from the food you just ate, and then when that exogenous fuel ran out, it seamlessly transitioned to burning stored body fat. The enzymatic pathways responsible for that shift were just constantly exercised.
Because early humans didn't have a choice. The food ran out, and the body had to switch tracks to keep you functioning until you managed to find the next meal.
Right, the transition was mandatory for survival. But when you are constantly fed, like we are today, when you never enter a state of true fasting or caloric deficit, because there is literally always a snack in the pantry.
Guilty.
Right. The enzymatic machinery required to mobilize and burn fat, it becomes incredibly sluggish. It's like a hybrid car that has only ever been driven on the electric battery. The gas engine literally seizes up from decades of disuse.
Oh, that makes so much sense. So when someone feels that intense brain fog or weakness or irritability, what we colloquially call being hangry, because their food delivery is 30 minutes late, they are just having a mood swing.
No, not at all.
Their body literally forgot how to open its own reserve tank.
Exactly. The physiological response to that delayed meal becomes a minor panic state. The brain senses dropping blood sugar levels, right? But because those fat-burning pathways are dormant, it cannot readily access the abundant alternative fuel stored on your body.
So it freaks out.
Yes. It triggers an emergency stress response. It pumps out adrenaline and cortisol to force glucose release from the liver. You feel anxious, frantic, and irritable because your biology is treating a slightly delayed lunch as an acute starvation threat.
Wow. So the mechanism for handling minor scarcity has completely atrophied.
Exactly. And we see the exact same atrophy in how we handle temperature.
Oh, right, because we live in 72 degrees year-round.
Yeah. We move from a heated house to a heated garage, into a heated car, and into a heated office. And as a result, our vascular system forgets how to regulate our internal climate.
We just assume we are making ourselves comfortable.
Right. But what we're actually doing is shrinking the window of environments in which we can safely exist. Genuine heat tolerance, it requires highly efficient sweat glands, and vasodilation, which is the widening of blood vessels at the skin's surface to release heat.
Okay.
And cold resilience relies on brown adipose tissue, which is a specific type of fat that generates heat, as well as the ability of blood vessels to constrict quickly to protect your core.
So if you never experience extreme temperatures, the accountant slashes the budget for brown fat and vascular elasticity.
You got it.
And then you step out into 30-degree weather, and your body essentially panics because the internal thermostat is just broken.
Yeah. You experience as intensely painful what a conditioned body would experience as merely brisk. The capability to endure is just gone.
Okay, I totally understand how this affects our muscles, our metabolism, and our circulation.
Yeah.
That makes perfect physical sense. But the idea that this exact same biological logic is attacking our nervous systems and our minds, that is a little harder to grasp.
It is, but it's happening.
Because we have engineered the friction out of our mental lives with incredible precision. Like recommendation algorithms eliminate the discomfort of choice. We never have to hold a complex mental map in our heads because of turn-by-turn navigation on our phones.
Right.
And if we feel a moment of boredom or distress, an infinite feed of entertainment is available within like 3 seconds to soothe us. So what does this all mean for the brain?
Well, the human brain is the ultimate use-it-or-lose-it environment. Synaptic pruning is a continuous process. Neural pathways that are regularly engaged are strengthened and insulated with myelin.
But the ones we don't use.
The pathways that fall into disuse are literally pruned away by the brain's immune cells to conserve energy. So when you face a problem and immediately outsource the cognitive load to an AI assistant or a search engine within the first 30 seconds,
you bypass the entire neurological process of struggling with uncertainty.
Exactly.
So outsourcing our thinking to AI and algorithms is basically like having someone else chew our food for us.
That's a very visceral image, but yes.
Like, sure, it's easier to swallow, but eventually our mental jaw muscles become too weak to bite into a difficult problem on our own.
Precisely. And let's take the GPS example. Outsourcing our navigation is like relying entirely on that GPS for your daily commute. The mental map of your city literally fades away because you've stopped paving those neural roads.
Right, and when the GPS inevitably loses its signal, you don't just lose the directions to the coffee shop. You've lost the underlying spatial awareness to navigate reality at all.
And that spatial awareness is a perfect stand-in for cognitive resilience. We tend to view resilience as like a static personality trait, right? Like you are either a tough person or a fragile one.
Right, genetics or just how you were raised.
But biology tells a vastly different story. Resilience is an active biological state. It behaves exactly like muscle. The autonomic nervous system only learns that disruption is survivable by encountering manageable friction, surviving that friction, and then allowing the parasympathetic nervous system to bring the body back to a calm baseline.
I have to admit, I struggle to buy this entirely, though.
Oh, really? How come?
Well, if the human organism is so remarkably efficient, why does it let us get to a point where a minor disruption causes a mental breakdown? Shouldn't evolutionary efficiency prioritize keeping us calm in a crisis? Like, freaking out over a lost GPS signal or a delayed flight seems incredibly inefficient from a survival standpoint.
Ah, okay. But that assumes the biological accountant is optimizing for your long-term emotional comfort.
Which it isn't.
No, it is actually optimizing for immediate short-term energy conservation. The human brain represents roughly 2% of our body weight, but it consumes up to 20% of our resting metabolic energy.
Wow. 20%.
Yeah. Maintaining dense, complex neural networks for navigation, complex problem solving, and emotional regulation is incredibly calorically expensive.
Okay, I see where this is going.
If the environment signals that those complex networks are no longer needed because the environment is completely predictable, the brain just prunes them. The consequence of that pruning is that when an unpredictable event actually does occur, you lack the sophisticated neural infrastructure to process it calmly.
So you default to the most primitive, energy-efficient response available, which is panic.
You got it. Because the practice of handling the unknown, the neurological reps of sitting in the uncomfortable space of I don't know the answer yet, that practice has been quietly removed from our daily cognitive diet.
We lose confidence in our own judgment because we literally lack the structural hardware we used to rely on.
Exactly.
This brings us to a really critical threshold in the text. What happens when this physical cognitive outsourcing compounds over time? Because we aren't just talking about taking it easy for a weekend, right? We are talking about years and decades of a frictionless lifestyle.
Right. And this reveals a profound illusion about the aging process. When you are in your 20s or 30s, you possess this massive biological buffer.
Right. Youth.
You have high baseline levels of hormones, rapid cellular turnover, natural elasticity. You can mask the physiological debt you are accumulating. You can bypass the stairs, outsource your memory, avoid the cold. And if an emergency forces you to, say, sprint for a train, your youthful biology will just bridge the gap.
But that buffer is finite. Time eventually collects the debt.
It always does. For a 70-year-old, those natural reserves are depleted. The stairs you avoided for 20 years for the sake of convenience suddenly become the stairs you physically cannot climb.
And we observe that decline and just write it off as the unavoidable tragedy of time passing. We just call it getting old.
But a significant portion of what we call aging is actually the sudden visibility of decades of biological budget cuts.
Oh, man.
The body just listened to the lifestyle it was given. It heard, we don't need to balance on uneven terrain. We don't need to regulate our own temperature. We don't need to mobilize stored fat.
So the organism adapted perfectly to the demand it was subjected to. The body didn't fail. It did precisely what bodies are designed to do.
Exactly. And this shifts our entire definition of what it means to be healthy. The text brings up Finch-Q and their concept of functional adaptability, which is crucial here. The argument is that health isn't measured by how your body or mind performs when everything is perfectly predictable.
Right, your health isn't your resting heart rate while you sit in a 72-degree room watching a screen.
No. Functional adaptability argues that true baseline health is measured exclusively by your capacity to recover from disruption.
So it's the unexpectedly steep hill?
Yes. It's the broken air conditioner during a heat wave. It's the incredibly stressful, unpredictable week at work. Those moments of friction do not reveal your comfort level. They reveal your hidden capacity.
Okay, I want to be careful here, and I'm sure you listening are thinking this too. Are we just romanticizing the past here?
What do you mean?
Well, I look at the broad span of human history, and it is mostly a story of trying not to die from exposure or starvation or preventable disease. The drive for comfort is what gave us antibiotics, indoor plumbing, and stable agriculture. Rejecting all of those advancements because we want to be tough seems profoundly absurd. We're not saying we should throw a GPS in the river.
No, of course not. Conflating comfort with safety is the intellectual trap we fall into. The dramatic reduction in preventable death and suffering over the last century is arguably our species' greatest triumph.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, the argument for functional adaptability is not about rejecting genuine safety or glorifying misery or, going to live in a cave. It is a highly specific argument about maintaining capability.
Capability.
Yes. We have taken the miraculous tools that saved us from dying and used them to insulate ourselves from ever having to exert effort.
So we used technology to cure the disease, and then we just kept taking the medicine until it became a poison.
That is a perfect way to phrase it. A life engineered entirely for ease makes the organism incredibly fragile when that ease inevitably fractures. And it always fractures.
Right, the power grid goes down, the algorithm fails.
Or life just throws an unavoidable personal tragedy at you.
If you have engineered a life of total frictionless ease, you are not making yourself stronger or more peaceful. You are manufacturing a profound fragility that you have simply mistaken for normalcy.
Because comfort takes our capabilities the way all important things are lost in life. Gradually and then completely.
Exactly.
You don't notice the exact day you stop being able to sprint. You don't mark the calendar on the day your brain stops being able to hold a map. You just wake up one morning, encounter a minor disruption, and realize the internal machinery is just gone. And reversing that loss, it requires the deliberate, conscious reintroduction of friction back into our daily routines.
We basically have to manually recreate the demands that modern life has automated away.
Yes. This means intentionally letting yourself get genuinely hungry before you consume a meal, forcing those metabolic pathways to wake up and mobilize stored fat.
Right. It means stepping into the cold air without immediately grabbing a heavy jacket, forcing your vascular system to do its job.
It means sitting with a difficult, complex problem for 30 minutes without reaching for your phone or asking an AI to summarize the solution.
Basically, it is the practice of letting a difficult or awkward feeling exist in your nervous system for a few minutes before you attempt to soothe it away with a digital distraction.
You have to signal to the biological accountant that those departments are still essential for your survival.
There is a really striking visual in the source material that captures this entire philosophy. Picture an older man, well into his 70s, carrying heavy grocery bags up a steep, uneven hill.
Yeah, I remember that part.
He doesn't have a cart. He doesn't have anyone assisting him. It is just a display of quiet, unhurried competence. And that is the physical manifestation of someone who never stopped asking something of themselves.
His body still retained the structural knowledge of what it was built for because he never allowed his environment to stop demanding it.
It brings us right back to Michael, our hypothetical man at the beginning, sitting in his perfectly temperature-controlled smart home, exhausted by the mere thought of a walk. The human body keeps a meticulous score.
It really does.
It doesn't usually manifest in a dramatic cinematic collapse. It manifests in that slow arithmetic of capability quietly withdrawn. The hill gets a fraction too steep. The grocery bag gets a pound too heavy. The analytical thought becomes too complex to hold in your working memory without digital assistance.
We have to make a daily choice whether we are going to keep asking something of ourselves. We may reach a point where we have to consciously engineer struggle into our routines simply to maintain our baseline humanity.
Which leaves you with a final, slightly unsettling thought I really want you to ponder today. As artificial intelligence, automation, and hyperconvenience continue to handle literally every minor friction in our daily lives, what if inconvenience becomes the ultimate, highly sought-after luxury of the future?
Oh, wow.
Think about it. What if one day we actually have to pay a massive premium to experience the raw struggle of doing things ourselves, just to prove to our own biology and minds that we still can? Will we be booking exorbitant exclusive retreats just to have our GPS disabled, get genuinely lost in the woods, and cook a meal over a fire we had to build from scratch?
You know, considering the trajectory of our technology, the commodification of struggle isn't just likely. It might become the only way we keep the biological ledger balanced.
It's a fascinating thought to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. When this finishes, do yourself a physiological favor. Leave the phone on your desk, go take a long walk, purposefully allow yourself to get a little bit lost, or just sit quietly with a difficult problem today. Let your internal accountant know you still need those departments fully funded. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.